On Thanksgiving night, my own sister charged me $150 to sleep in the guest room of what used to be our family home. But when I opened the envelope she handed me with that bill, I discovered something that would change everything I thought I knew about the last 25 years of my life. I'm 62 now, and I hadn't been back to Connecticut since our parents died 5 years ago. The old colonial house still looked the same from the outside. White clapboard siding, black shutters, that wraparound porch, where Mom used to serve sweet tea on summer evenings. But walking up those familiar brick steps felt like entering a stranger's home. Martha greeted me at the door with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She's always been the practical one, the responsible daughter who stayed close to home while I chased dreams in California. At 58, she looked older than I remembered, her brown hair now streaked with silver, wearing one of those floral aprons that Mom used to love. "David, you made it," she said, giving me a brief hug that felt more obligatory than warm. Come in, come in. Dinner's almost ready." The dining room was set perfectly. The good china, crystal glasses, cloth napkins folded just like Mom taught us. The turkey was golden brown, surrounded by all the traditional sides: cranberry sauce, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole. It should have felt like coming home. Instead, it felt like visiting a museum of my childhood. Martha's husband Tom was there, quiet as always, along with their 2 grown kids, who barely looked up from their phones to acknowledge me. The conversation was polite, surface level. How's California? How's the film business? The usual questions people ask when they don't really want to know the answers. As the evening wound down and everyone began to leave, Martha approached me with an envelope and what looked like a receipt. "David, I hope you don't mind, but I've started charging for the guest room. It's $150 for the night. You know, to help with the upkeep of the house." I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. "You're charging me? To stay in our parents' house?" Her chin lifted defensively. "It's my house now, David, and maintaining a property this size isn't cheap. I think $150 is quite reasonable compared to local hotels." The words hit me like a physical blow. I pulled out my wallet and handed her the cash, my hands shaking slightly. That's when she gave me the envelope. Thick, yellowed with age, my name written on it in Dad's familiar handwriting. "What's this?" I asked. "Something I found while cleaning out the attic. Thought you might want it." Her voice was casual, but something in her eyes looked almost guilty. "Why not give it to me earlier?" She shrugged. "I forgot about it until just now. Anyway, checkout is by 10 tomorrow. I have book club at 11. I wanted to ask more questions, but the coldness in her voice stopped me. I took the envelope upstairs to the room that used to be mine, now decorated in generic beige tones, with no trace of the boy who once lived there. That night, lying in the narrow twin bed under an unfamiliar comforter, I kept thinking about the envelope on the nightstand. Something about Martha's behavior felt wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. The sister I grew up with had always been responsible, sure, but never cruel, never calculating. But then again, how well did I really know her anymore? 25 years is a long time to be away. Let me take you back to understand how we got here. Our parents, Robert and Eleanor Williams, bought this house in 1975 when Martha was 8 and I was 12. Dad was an insurance adjuster. Mom taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable, happy. The house was our pride and joy. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a big kitchen where Mom spent hours perfecting her recipes, and that wraparound porch where we'd spend summer evenings, catching fireflies and listening to Dad's stories about his Navy days. Martha and I were different from the start. She loved structure, routine, helping Mom with household chores and organizing everything in sight. I was the dreamer, the one with his head in the clouds, always making up stories or putting on little shows for the family. When I turned 18, I announced I was moving to California to study film. I'll never forget the look on my parents' faces. Mom tried to hide her disappointment, but Dad looked proud and terrified at the same time. "California's expensive, son," he said. "And the entertainment business, it's not exactly stable." "I know, Dad, but I have to try. I can't spend my whole life wondering what if." Martha, then 14, rolled her eyes. "Why can't you just get a normal job like everyone else?" But my parents supported my decision. They drove me to the airport, Mom crying the whole way, Dad pressing an envelope of cash into my hands for emergencies. Those first years in LA were brutal. I worked 3 jobs while taking film classes, lived in apartments so small you could touch both walls with your arms stretched out, survived on ramen noodles and pure determination. But slowly, steadily, I built a career. Started as a production assistant, worked my way up to assistant director, finally began producing independent documentaries. I called home every Sunday, at least in the beginning. Talked to Mom and Dad, sometimes Martha if she was around. They seemed proud of my small successes, always asking when I was coming home for a visit. But as the years passed, the calls became less frequent. I was busy, they were busy. Martha got married to Tom, had kids. I got caught up in projects, relationships that didn't work out, the endless hustle of trying to make it in Hollywood. When I did visit, maybe once every 3 or 4 years, things felt strained. Martha would make comments about my glamorous California lifestyle, while she was stuck here taking care of Mom and Dad. I tried to explain that my lifestyle wasn't glamorous at all, that I worked 16-hour days and barely made ends meet. But she didn't want to hear it. The calls from home eventually stopped altogether. I told myself it was natural. Families drift apart. Everyone gets busy with their own lives. But deep down, I always felt guilty about the distance. When Mom got sick with cancer 8 years ago, Martha called to tell me. I offered to come home, to help with medical bills, anything they needed. But Martha said they had it handled, that there was no need to disrupt my work. When Mom died, I flew back for the funeral. It was awkward, emotional, confusing. Dad seemed lost without her, aged 10 years overnight. I tried to talk to him, to reconnect, but he felt like a stranger. I stayed for the funeral and flew back to California, promising to visit soon. I never did. When Dad died 2 years later, heart attack, sudden, Martha said, I couldn't even make it to the funeral. I was in the middle of producing a documentary about veterans' healthcare, couldn't abandon the project. I sent flowers, called Martha to offer condolences, promised to visit the grave when I could. Now, lying in this sterile guest room, I realized how that must have looked to Martha. How it must have felt to shoulder all the responsibility while her brother lived his selfish life 3,000 miles away. Maybe the $150 charge wasn't about money. Maybe it was about pain. I didn't sleep much that night. Every creak of the old house brought back memories. Mom's footsteps in the hallway checking on us. Dad's morning routine of coffee and newspaper in the kitchen. The sound of Martha practicing piano in the living room. At dawn, I finally reached for the envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were dozens of letters, cards, photographs, all addressed to me, all postmarked from the last 8 years. The dates started just after Mom's diagnosis and continued right up until a month before Dad died. The first letter was in Mom's shaky handwriting. My dearest David, I know you're busy with your important work, but I wanted to write because talking on the phone has become difficult with the treatments. I think about you every day and wonder how you're doing, really doing. Not the cheerful updates you give Martha, but how your heart is. Are you happy? Are you taking care of yourself? I worry that we didn't prepare you well enough for the loneliness that can come with chasing dreams. I had to stop reading. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. Mom had been writing to me while she was dying, and I never received a single letter. The next one was from Dad, dated 6 months after Mom's funeral. Son, I don't understand why you haven't answered our letters. Your mother wrote to you almost every day during her illness. She kept asking me if maybe you were mad at us about something. I told her you were probably just busy, but now I'm starting to wonder myself. If we did something wrong, if we hurt you somehow, please tell me. I can't bear the thought that you're angry with us. We love you so much, David. We always have. Please come home. My vision blurred as I read letter after letter. Mom writing about her treatments, asking for my thoughts on everything from her medication decisions to what she should do with her garden. Dad writing about how much he missed her, how proud he was of my latest documentary that he'd somehow found online, how he'd set up a computer just to email me but never heard back. There were birthday cards I never received, Christmas cards, a letter from Dad dated just 3 weeks before he died. David, I don't know why you've cut us out of your life, but I want you to know that I forgive you. Maybe we were too clingy, too needy. Maybe we didn't understand your world well enough, but please don't let our mistakes keep you away forever. I'm not doing well, son. My heart, the doctor says it's getting weaker. I keep thinking about that last time you were here, how distant you seemed. I should have tried harder to connect with you then. I should have told you how proud I am of the man you became, even if you chose a different path than we expected. I love you, David. Come home. I dropped the letters and ran to the bathroom, barely making it before I threw up everything from Thanksgiving dinner. My whole body shook as the truth crashed over me like a wave. My parents had been reaching out to me for years. They'd been writing, calling, trying to maintain a relationship while I grew more and more distant, assuming they were fine without me. They died thinking I had rejected them, that I didn't care enough to respond to their letters, but I never got the letters, which meant I stumbled back to the bedroom and frantically searched through the remaining correspondence. At the bottom of the pile was an envelope addressed to me in official letterhead from Patterson, Williams Associates, the law firm that had handled Dad's estate. Inside was a copy of Dad's will dated just 2 years after Mom died. My hands shook as I read the relevant section. To my beloved son, David Williams, I leave half of the family home at 42 Maple Street, contingent on his return to Connecticut within 5 years of my death to claim this inheritance. If David does not return within this time frame, the full property shall pass to my daughter, Martha Williams Henderson. I pray that David will come home not just for the house, but to heal whatever rift has grown between us. 5 years. Dad died 2 years ago, which meant I had 3 more years to claim my half of the house. But how could I claim something I never knew existed? I checked the postmark on the legal envelope. It was dated 1 month after Dad's funeral, exactly when Martha would have received the estate documents. She knew. She had known all along that half the house was mine. She had been intercepting my mail for years, letting our parents die believing I didn't love them, letting me live with guilt over my supposed neglect. The woman who charged me $150 to sleep in what was rightfully half my house had stolen years of correspondence with my dying parents. I called her immediately. It was barely 7 in the morning, but I couldn't wait another second. Hello? Her voice was groggy, irritated. Martha, it's David. We need to talk. David? It's 7 a.m. What's wrong? The letters, Martha. I found the letters. Silence. Then, what letters? Don't you dare lie to me now. The letters from Mom and Dad that you've been hiding for years. The will that says I inherit half the house, everything. More silence. When she spoke again, her voice was different, smaller. I don't know what you're talking about. Mom wrote to me every day while she was dying, Martha. Dad begged me to come home. They died thinking I didn't care about them because you made sure I never got their letters. How could you do that? How could you let them suffer like that? I didn't, she started, then stopped. You don't understand. You left us. You abandoned this family. I moved away for college and work. That's not abandonment. That's growing up. But you stole my relationship with our parents. You stole their last words to me. You stole my chance to say goodbye. You had plenty of chances, she shouted suddenly. You could have called more, visited more. You could have been here when Mom was throwing up from chemo, when Dad couldn't remember how to work the TV remote, when I was doing everything alone, because you told me you had it handled. Every time I offered to help, you said you didn't need me. I shouldn't have had to ask for help from my own brother. We were both crying now, years of resentment and misunderstanding pouring out through the phone. Martha, I said quietly, I would have moved back home to help if I'd known how bad things were. I would have taken leave from work. I would have paid for nurses. I would have been there every single day. But you never told me the truth, and you made sure Mom and Dad couldn't tell me either. They asked me to mail your letters, she whispered. At first I forgot a few times. Then when you didn't respond, they kept asking me if I was sure I'd sent them. And I got angry. I got so angry that you were living your perfect life while I was watching them suffer. So I stopped mailing them. For 8 years, Martha. You did this for 8 years. I know. Her voice was barely audible. I know what I did, and I hate myself for it every single day. Then why the hell did you charge me $150 to stay in what's legally half my house? Another long pause. Because I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to feel as small and unwelcome as I felt every time you called with some exciting update about your life while I was cleaning up Dad's accidents and pretending everything was fine. I hung up the phone and sank onto the bed, surrounded by letters I should have received years ago. Letters that would have brought me home. Letters that would have let me be a son to my parents in their final years, instead of the distant stranger I'd become. The cruelest part was reading Mom's hope in those early letters, her belief that I was just busy, that I still loved them. Watching that hope fade over months of unanswered mail, turning into hurt, then resignation, then the terrible acceptance that her son simply didn't care enough to write back. Dad's letters showed a different kind of pain, confusion, self-doubt, wondering what he'd done wrong to lose his son's love. Near the end, he started apologizing for things that were never his fault, begging forgiveness for imagined slights. They died broken-hearted because of Martha's jealousy and need for control. But as I read more, I began to understand something else. Martha's pain was real too. While I was pursuing my dreams, she was watching our parents deteriorate day by day. She was the one who held Mom's hand through chemo sessions, who helped Dad learn to live without his wife, who made sure they took their medications and got to doctor appointments and weren't alone when they were scared. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it explains it. I spent the morning reading every single letter, absorbing years of my parents' love and worry and hope. By the time I finished, I knew exactly what I had to do. I drove straight to Patterson, Williams Associates, without even checking out of Martha's house. The receptionist looked surprised when I walked in without an appointment, but when I explained who I was, she immediately called for Mr. Patterson. He was a kind man in his 70s who remembered my parents fondly. David, I wondered when we'd see you. Your father spoke about you often. Mr. Patterson, I need to ask you about Dad's will, specifically the 5-year clause about the house. His face grew serious. Yes, we sent you a copy right after the funeral. Did you not receive it? No, I didn't. I only found out about it yesterday. Can you tell me what options I have? He pulled out a thick file and explained the details. As Dad's heir, I had the right to claim my half of the property, but I would need to provide evidence of why I hadn't come forward sooner. The intercepted mail would certainly qualify as grounds for extending the deadline. What would you like to do, David? I thought about Martha, alone in that big house, surrounded by memories and regret. I thought about my parents, who would have hated to see their children destroy each other over property. And I thought about the man I wanted to be going forward. I want to claim my inheritance, I said, but not to keep it. That afternoon, I drove back to Martha's house. She was waiting on the porch, still in her bathrobe, looking like she hadn't slept in days. I went to see the lawyer, I told her. She nodded, not looking up. I figured you would. Martha, look at me. When she finally raised her eyes, I saw something I hadn't seen since we were children, my little sister, scared and sorry and desperately hoping for forgiveness. What you did was unforgivable, I said. You stole 8 years of relationship with our parents. You let them die thinking I didn't love them. You robbed me of the chance to comfort them, to be there for them, to say goodbye properly. She started crying again. I know I did. But, I continued, I also understand why you did it. You were carrying an impossible burden alone, and instead of asking for help, you decided to punish me for not reading your mind. That's human. That's painfully, terribly human. So what happens now? She whispered. I sat down beside her on the porch steps, the same steps where we used to wait for the school bus every morning. Now we figure out how to be a family again, the only family either of us has left. I told her about my conversation with the lawyer, about my legal right to half the house. I watched her face crumple as she realized she was about to lose the home she'd worked so hard to maintain. But I don't want the house, Martha. She looked up, confused. I want something more valuable than real estate. I want my relationship with our parents' memory. I want letters they wrote to be shared with me, even though it's too late. I want family stories and recipes, and all the things you experienced with them that I missed. You're not going to take the house? I'm going to sign over my half to you, with one condition. She waited. You're going to pay me back every penny that Mom and Dad tried to send me over the years. There are references in their letters to money they wanted to help me with, gifts for birthdays, and Christmas I never received. You're going to calculate every dollar and pay it back with interest. Her eyes widened. David, that could be tens of thousands of dollars over 8 years. I know, and you're going to do it because it's the right thing to do, because they wanted me to have that money, and you stole it just like you stole their letters. She was quiet for a long time. Finally, what will you do with the money? I'm going to create a scholarship fund in Mom and Dad's name for kids who want to pursue artistic careers, but whose families can't afford to support them. Kids like I was. Martha started crying harder. They would have loved that. Yes, they would have. We sat in silence for a while, watching the sun set through the maple trees that gave our street its name. Finally, Martha spoke again. I've been so angry for so long, David. Angry at you for leaving. Angry at Mom and Dad for getting sick. Angry at myself for being the one who got stuck with everything. I thought if I could just make you hurt, the way I was hurting, it wouldn't fix anything. No, it just made everything worse. Over the following months, Martha kept her word. She liquidated some investments and took out a loan against the house to pay back every dollar she could calculate from our parents' letters. It wasn't easy for her financially, but she never complained. More importantly, she started seeing a therapist to work through decades of resentment and control issues. She joined a support group for adult caregivers. She began to understand that her anger wasn't really about me. It was about a system that expects women to sacrifice their own lives to care for aging parents without support or recognition. The scholarship fund launched 6 months later with $47,000. Every penny Martha calculated our parents had tried to give me, plus interest, plus my own contribution. We held the announcement at the house on Thanksgiving, exactly 1 year after the night that changed everything. This time, the dinner felt different. Martha's kids actually put away their phones and asked me about my work. Tom shared stories about Dad that I'd never heard. Martha cooked all of Mom's recipes from the handwritten cards she'd saved. And when the evening wound down, Martha handed me another envelope. I tensed, remembering the last time. "Relax," she said with a small smile. "It's not a bill. It's something I wrote for you. For when you get home." This time, the envelope contained a single letter in Martha's neat handwriting. "Dear David, I can't give you back the years I stole. I can't undo the pain I caused you or Mom and Dad. But I can promise you this. I will spend the rest of my life making sure their memory is honored. I will tell their grandchildren stories about their Uncle David, who was brave enough to chase his dreams. I will make sure everyone knows how much they loved you and how proud they were of your success. And I will never, ever come between you and your family again. Welcome home, big brother. Love, Martha." As I write this, it's been 2 years since that first terrible Thanksgiving. The scholarship has helped 12 students pursue their dreams in film, music, and art. Martha and I talk every Sunday, a tradition I learned from our parents, but never properly honored. She's doing well. The therapy helped her understand that taking care of others doesn't mean martyring yourself. She started dating again, something she'd put off for years. She's talking about maybe traveling, seeing some of the world beyond Connecticut. I visit every few months now. I sleep in the guest room, free of charge, surrounded by photos Martha has put up of our family. Pictures I'd never seen before, moments she preserved while I was away building my life. Last month, she showed me something that made me cry all over again. It was a scrapbook she'd been keeping all these years, filled with articles about my documentaries, programs from film festivals where my work was shown, even a review from a small indie publication that called one of my films quietly powerful. "I was always proud of you," she said, "even when I was angry, especially when I was angry. The hardest part of forgiveness isn't letting go of what someone did to you. It's letting go of who you thought they were." Martha isn't the cruel, calculating woman I believed her to be that night. She's my little sister who was drowning in responsibility and grief, who made terrible choices from a place of pain. That doesn't excuse what she did, but it makes it understandable. And understanding, I've learned, is the first step toward healing. The house is still Martha's, and that's as it should be. She's the one who maintained it, who filled it with love even when she was struggling. But now it feels like home again when I visit. Not because of who owns the deed, but because we've both learned that family isn't about who stays and who goes. It's about who comes back, and who opens the door when they do. Sometimes the people we love most are capable of the greatest betrayals. Sometimes the family member who charges you for a guest room is the same one who spent years caring for your dying parents alone. Sometimes forgiveness means holding someone accountable while still choosing to love them. And sometimes, when you finally open that envelope, you don't just find the truth about what was taken from you. You find the path to getting your family back. The Robert and Eleanor Williams Scholarship Fund continues to grow. Every recipient gets a letter explaining that the money comes from parents who believed in supporting their children's dreams, even when those dreams took them far from home. We tell them that love isn't measured by physical distance, but by emotional presence. I wish I could have learned that lesson while my parents were still alive, but I'm grateful Martha and I learned it while we still had each other. This Thanksgiving, I'll be back in Connecticut, sleeping in that same guest room. But this time, when Martha hands me an envelope at the end of the night, I know it will contain something beautiful, maybe a new photo she found, or a story about our parents, or just a note reminding me how grateful she is that I came home. And this time, I'll sleep peacefully in that narrow twin bed, surrounded by the love I thought I'd lost forever, knowing that sometimes the most painful endings are actually new beginnings in disguise.